in Canada here and most of the world is there's a culture in education that is a very big obstacle to overcome, and it's the culture of being a certified teacher. And I don't want to be called a teacher because I've been inside of schools and I see how they're more part of the problem. So I call myself a learning specialist. And recently I found out I don't want to even call myself an orthopédagogue, because although the definition is very nice on the Quebec side of the French definition of it here, it's not the behaviors I'm seeing from the individuals with these diplomas. Can't call myself a tutor because I've worked alongside tutors in different cultures and seen how they don't understand the difference between that and a teacher. And can't even call myself a life skills coach anymore. I stopped doing that and named part of why I'm using the word humanics is to replace how life skills has been hijacked. And there's very little terms. If I ever get a PhD, I don't even want to say that I have a PhD because, again, a majority of people there, I don't want to be associating myself with them without my believing that this would actually be damaging my reputation. So I'm going to call myself, as I have been for a few years now, an independent scientist. But I also want to say that observing on television the scientists or doctors, specialists that governments or municipalities make use of is they're not independent scientists, and an opposite of an independent scientist would be a compromised scientist, and that's what they are. Because otherwise we'd be seeing them disagreeing and being outraged with, where their cultures are leading them to make decisions. Of course, they should be as outraged with how they're part of that, and they've facilitated that for so long. But I don't see, like the lovely mayor of Rochester, New York, I don't see any 180s in these scientists. So can't even call myself just a scientist. I have to say independent scientist. For example, if Canada and other countries working still within the monetary paradigm, and when I'm asked from schools or universities or colleges, can you teach a course on the social sciences? And then they either give one or two, they usually give 2 or 3 examples of what they consider to be the social sciences. And usually one of them is economics. And I have to say, well, that's in the domain of mental illness, and I can teach a course on mental illness. And then I have to say what the social sciences really are. But a country like Canada or others that have exemption rules to things like going in quarantine, you can tell that they're very disconnected from the natural world. And if you're a scientist, supposedly objective, working for the government, you would say, no exceptions, because the laws of the natural world don't interact with the magical paradigms of money or the supernatural paradigms of religion. Those are ways to disconnect from reality of the natural world, and that explains the trouble we're in, right? So, unless I hear scientists say stuff like this, I will not call them a peer. So I would say things like this, and I would work for the government at minimum wage. And again, this is where you see somebody that really wants to be of service to their nation or whatever doesn't make the compromises of how big the salary is going to be. So anybody that's a millionaire or billionaire, because of the mental illness we have about economics, and how we've been around so long, we're supposedly very civilized, is we should already know that rich people, unless 80% of their resources are being put into cultural repair paradigms that aren't really just gonna, like feed rice to refugees as if they had no rice in their countries. That's not a solution of cultural repair. Well, any of these millionaires or billionaires are actually criminals, really, because to have become a millionaire or billionaire, if you follow the laws of, physics and biology and chemistry and and social sciences is you know that the more there's a separation of resources and the bigger it grows, the more poor people you have to make or enslave, whether in your own community or in other countries, within this global monetary paradigm of a monopoly game, is the richer you are, the more you're somebody who's created victims to become this person. So I don't care if somebody gives half their fortune away and really it's really meant as a money laundering scheme for tax purposes, or it's really still moved around in the same flawed paradigm that's disconnected from the natural world, such as the magical monetary paradigm or the supernatural religious paradigms, who are not trained for cultural repair either. Well, they'd have to admit quite a bit of what damage they have done first. You know, you can't be a priest who provides, counseling when, the supernatural or the quotes from the Bible are included more than the science of counseling in it. It's not really, it's more like we're disconnecting you from reality because we think it's the best thing for you. Even though you've got this gigantic brain with resilience, is we don't believe you're capable of dealing with your own problems, so we'll just kind of tweak your interpretation of the world and disconnect it from reality in a way that we think is better for you. So, and parents do this like you wouldn't believe in every country of the world. Educators, doctors, mental health workers, everybody, and they're all thinking they're doing good, they have good intentions, and they want to be judged by their intentions, not by their intellectual laziness, which prevents them from acquiring the right tools to be helpers in the first place. So it's quite sad to see this, and it's quite sad to see how it's accelerating what's coming and how it's going to cause more harm, and how I'm predicting a lot of news coverage that's going to say, if we only knew, this is the first time we're learning these lessons. And then I don't know if at the same time they're doing searches and burning articles and books like in the old days. They're just doing it in a way that's harder to notice because there's no smoke, about things that already said all these things before that they chose to ignore with their intellectual laziness. But it's the intention that counts. So if somebody that is poor and homeless and living in a tent, if your intention is to pay for their Costco card, then yeah, you're not a helper at all, right?